again tomorrow as we continue to analyze the budget. Priska Adrian, WBS News, Kampala.
Well, thanks there indeed, Priska, for that story. And viewers, and of course, you know the budget is just around the corner. Next week, yes, the new finance minister will be reading the budget, and I will be getting more on that story. And viewers, as you know as well, President Irene Muloni has just appointed his new cabinet, and some of them have already started the work. Those who are sure, of course, that they've gone through. And yes, let me now hand you over to our reporter Priska Adrian for a live interview with the newly appointed Minister for Energy. That is Engineer Honorable Irene Muloni. Priska, it's a beautiful evening indeed. What is in your docket for business tonight with the new Minister for Energy?
Thank you, Moi. Tonight on business, we are joined by the newly appointed Minister for Energy and Mineral Development, who is also the Member of Parliament for Bulambuli District, Engineer Irene Muloni, to tell us more on what her ministry is doing to ensure that the private sector, they are complaining of high cost of doing business, and we are going to be engaging her. She is going to tell us what her ministry has in store for the private sector. Thank you, Honorable.
Good evening to all of you viewers. I do appreciate the concern and the plight of the business people, the private sector, the high cost of doing business and energy being one of the inputs. As government, we have a comprehensive plan in the next 5 years to increase the generation capacity from the current about 600 megawatts to about 3,800 megawatts in the next 5 years. So there are many projects which are online, looking at the cheapest source of electricity, which is hydro. We have plans to exploit quite a good potential of electricity from hydroelectricity on the River Nile. We have Bujagali, which is already underway, and we hope that by October in this year we shall have the first machine online. Next year we should have the entire dam commissioned. Karuma is also in the advanced stages. It was redesigned to increase the capacity to generate about 600 megawatts. We have other projects for exploiting the potential on the River Nile, mini hydros, and of course the oil, which is from the Albertine region. We expect to also exploit the gas. It's a good component which we can generate electricity from. So while we appreciate the difficulties and the challenges that the private sector is experiencing in terms of energy, government is doing everything possible to ensure that we increase the generational capacity. This will go a long way in actually reducing the tariffs, because capacity is a key component into the formula which the Electricity Regulatory Authority uses in computing the tariffs. I know this is another issue that the private sector, complains because of the high tariffs, and of course then the cost of doing business goes up. So if we increase the generation capacity, it will have a direct impact on the tariffs. The more the capacity, the lower the tariffs. So for the private sector, we appreciate your concern, but government is doing everything possible to address your concerns, and just a little bit of patience, but we will aggressively, we shall accelerate. We'll make sure that as much resources as possible are put, especially in terms of funding and financing, in which case the private sector participation is very much welcome, so that we can jointly accelerate the increment in the capacity of the cheapest source, which is hydro, so that in the long run the tariffs will reduce. And of course, when we increase the capacity, it means the extension and the expansion of the electricity network will now go spread into the rural areas, because our target is to industrialize our economy. We want to have small-scale industries in the rural areas so that we can add value to our agricultural products. And of course, in the end result is that we shall have job creation, especially for our youth.
Honorable Minister, let me cut you short. You're talking about actually rural electrification. Most of this private sector people are here. Most of these industries are located in the capital city. Would like to see them move away from the capital city into the rural areas. And you're talking about also Karuma Dam. But the question is, how long will the government take to ensure that this factor of cost in the private sector is taken care of? Governments have come in, ministers have come in, they have promised of reducing the energy costs. How are you assuring the private sector that we will eventually see these tariffs go down?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. That the Electricity Regulatory Authority, which is tasked to determine the tariffs of electricity, it puts into consideration what is our net generation capacity. The higher the capacity, the lower the tariffs. So if we can increase our electricity capacity in the country, then the tariffs are bound to come down. But of course also the other factor is the operational efficiency. So the operational companies like Umeme will have to strive to ensure that they cut down their costs, operational costs, which have a direct bearing on the tariff. And those costs can be cut in a way of reducing the losses, the electricity losses which are lost, where people would be benefiting from them. So improvement in the operational efficiency, increase in the generation capacity will result in a reduction in the electricity tariffs.
And lastly, Honorable, the private sector is talking about tapping the solar energy. How viable is this? Is that something that maybe the energy ministry or even government at whole should be looking at?
It's an alternative energy source. It's abundant in our country because we have a lot of sunshine, but the initial capital in terms of equipment is always the prohibitive factor. When you compare the cost of generating electricity from hydro compared to solar, because of that initial high capital cost, it makes hydro electricity much cheaper than the other alternatives. And that is why government is striving to actually increase the generation capacity from hydro, because it's one of the cheapest sources that we have. We are looking at gas, which we are going to exploit from the oil region, and of course the thermal generation, which is currently part of the mix, which was brought on board as an interim measure because of the drought that affected our generation capacity, will slowly be phased out. Thermal is very expensive. It's almost 4 times the cost of generating electricity from hydro. So if we can maximize electricity generation from the cheapest sources and phase out the more costly sources, then it will definitely go towards reducing the tariff, and that will really work well for all of us, for the private sector, so that we can develop our economy.
Thank you very much, Honorable, and good luck in your docket.
Thank you very much.
Well, viewers, there you have it. That was the newly appointed Minister for Energy and Mineral Development, Engineer Irene Muloni, trying to tell the private sector that government is still there with them. They are going to make sure that they reduce the power tariffs. And next we have the Forex report. Let's look at how the shilling traded against the major currencies and even the regional currencies. Back to you, Moe.